If you've been through a divorce, particularly an unwanted divorce, I'm guessing you've probably tried a lot of things, trying to figure out how to move on, trying to figure out how to get your confidence back and pick your life up and have a happy, healthy future. Maybe you've done law of attraction work. Maybe you've done some kind of coaching for men program. Maybe you've even started or worked through parts of A Course in Miracles. I think all of those things can be amazing, but I also find that they're not the best thing for men after divorce. And there's one thing that they have in common that I think makes them not incredibly effective and often fall short for men who have gone through a divorce. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, what is missing from those programs, so that if you are engaged in them, you can explore this other piece so that you really truly get unstuck, and that the work of A Course in Miracles or Law of Attraction or in a men's coaching group can really start to work the way it's supposed to for you. I'm Rachael Sloan. I'm a master NLP practitioner and a certified life coach, and I work primarily with men like you who have gone through a divorce, usually a divorce they didn't want, and are trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move forward, but not just move forward into a bigger, better, richer, more connected life. And that's actually what I love about programs like A Course in Miracles or Law of Attraction work or most of the coaching programs that are out there for men, is they really focus on helping you build and visualize and create and step into that future, that richness, that fullness. But there's a piece that a lot of them miss. And what I find for a lot of my clients and for a lot of those of you who reach out to me here from YouTube is that you try to do that work, but you get stuck, or it doesn't quite click, or it doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. And the reason for that is that focus on the future, that focus on the positive and what you're creating is important. But before you can do that, you've got to look at what's already inside. You have to look at the pain. You have to look at the negativity. You have to look at the patterns that might not be serving you any longer. And often in A Course in Miracles and Law of Attraction, even in coaching programs, there's a real tendency to discourage too much reflection, too much storytelling. You know, I've even had conversations with fellow coaches, with colleagues who have said that they've really moved away from sharing any of the negative experiences from the telling of stories with their clients, because they find that that tends to just reinforce those negative cycles, right? Reinforces the negative memories, the emotions that come with it, all of those thoughts. And they find it more effective to focus on the positive, what you're creating, what you're becoming, what your resources are. I get it, I do. But I think there's a real limit to how far you can go with that work if you're not able to effectively look at the negative, at the pain, at the anger, at all of these things that are in there that come up. If you watched my last video, I talked about emotional suppression and toxic positivity. This is like the professional flip side of that. We want, as coaches, to support our clients in creating their future and creating what they want. But when we focus on that, and when we focus solely on that, and we encourage them to not explore their current pain, to not explore what's deeper, we are reinforcing the belief that what they feel right now is bad, and that it's wrong, and that it's a problem. So as a concrete example of this, for instance, I was recently working with a client, and he's got this part of him that he doesn't like. And I don't blame him. It's a nasty part. It tells him he's not good enough. It tells him all the way he's failed and is continuing to fail. It's this voice in his head that is chattering away and judging and generally just not nice. You might call it his inner critic. I would argue that his experience of it is quite a lot stronger than that. And this part also seems to hijack his brain sometimes, right? He gets triggered, right? Maybe he sees his ex-wife or something's come up around custody with his kids. And this part takes over, and it can be aggressive, it can be nasty to other people, it can yell, it can be loud. Generally, it does things that he doesn't want to do, right? It hijacks his brain, it hijacks his behavior. So he has this part that he doesn't like, and he wants it to go away. Well, if he's working in A Course in Miracles, or he's doing Law of Attraction work, or he's in a more traditional coaching program for men, now not always, but often, he'll be encouraged to focus on what he wants to do instead, how he wants to show up, what thoughts he'd need to believe to do that, how he wants to feel, how to step into and actively create that as a reality for him, and to stop focusing on this internal negativity, which is great. That has some effectiveness, but it feeds his belief that this part of him is bad, that it's a problem, that this critical, nasty voice that takes over and wreaks havoc in his life is truly an enemy. And so what I see happening for some of my clients in this work is that by trying to focus on what they want instead, by trying to create this positive future self, they're reinforcing the belief within their own brain that these parts of who they are now are not good, that they're bad. And that can create real problems. It can really keep you stuck, because that part, for this client, that voice that's so mean to him, it has a positive intention. As nasty as it is, as disruptive as it is in his life, it's there for a reason, right? It's not because he's crazy. It's not because he's bad. It's not because if this voice wasn't there, he would do horrible things, right? This part of him wants something for him. And usually the parts of ourselves that are doing things that we don't like in our lives, or the parts of ourselves that are judging us, usually they're trying to keep us safe. And usually it's the part of ourselves that learned how to keep us safe when we were little, when we were kids, when we didn't have the resources or the fully developed brain that we have as adults. So we have these internal parts that protected us, right? That got us through, right? That our anger was helpful. The critical voice of judgment that kept us from getting in trouble, right? And from getting spanked or scolded at school. In some way, that part kept us safe, right? And so whenever we have a self-critical voice in our heads, whenever we have an angry voice hijacking our brain and taking over, that is a defense, right? And maybe you even think of it that way, as a defense mechanism, as a survival reaction that you don't like and you want to change. But as long as you see it as something you don't like and that you need to change and be someone else, be someone different, turn into this positive, amazing future version of yourself, it's going to be really hard to let that part go, because that part thinks that you're facing some danger. It's as though that part were a person who is like pounding on your bedroom door screaming that there's a fire in the house, right? And you're ignoring it. You're telling it to go away. Well, that doesn't really work, right? You're like, no, I am becoming this amazing future person who doesn't yell and doesn't scream and doesn't run out of the house yelling and screaming. But there's a fire, and this part's going to keep yelling and keep screaming and keep being upset. So we can't ignore these negative parts, and we can't continue to reinforce for ourselves that they're bad by telling ourselves we have to be different. What we need to do is really honor these parts of ourselves and recognize what they're trying to do for us, right? That for my client, that angry self-critical voice was trying to keep him playing small, right? It was trying to keep him safe by keeping him invisible in his own life. And in this particular case, that went back to a lot of childhood experiences. And whatever your inner critical voice says, it probably goes back to your childhood experiences as well. Right? But that voice isn't the enemy, even if it's saying nasty, horrible things to you. It wants something good for you. And I'm guessing if you really tune in and get curious, it wants you to be safe. And somehow, some point in your life, it learned that this type of criticism was the way to do it. Or it learned that anger was the way to protect yourself. And maybe that method doesn't serve you so well anymore. It's quite likely. Most of us, the survival reactions of our childhood are not the responses we want to have as adults, but that's okay. The way to change it is not to fight that part, and it's not to focus on becoming someone who doesn't have these parts. The way to resolve that is to really honor that intention within yourself and say, wow, this part, right, this nasty voice in my head, this anger, wants to protect me, or it wants me to be happy. And I can honor that. I can appreciate that. Right? When you look in and you find that thing that you can resonate with in these negative inner parts of yourself, they start to become teammates. They start to become your allies instead of your enemies. But you can't do that unless you look at them, unless you explore them and you really deeply seek to understand what they're doing, where they came from, and why these patterns of behavior, these patterns of thought, these patterns of emotion keep coming up for you. They're not there for no reason. So this is where I think a lot of traditional coaching for men falls short, This is where I fall out of work like A Course in Miracles or Law of Attraction, is often those teachings want you to just stay focused on what you want. Stay focused on the good, stay focused on the positive, stay focused on creating, on manifesting, on becoming. And while that work has a place, my experience with my clients and in my own inner work has been that that place has to come after a deep exploration into what is happening, into these negative patterns, into these behaviors you don't want to have anymore. We have to figure out what they're doing for you and what the positive intent is behind them. Then they become so easy to transform, so easy to begin to let go of, so that you can step into and become, so that you can manifest and create this rich human life that you want to have. That work is beautiful also, and it's very possible to do. But you can't do it while you're rejecting a part of yourself or viewing certain thoughts, certain emotions or behaviors as problems, as something that is inherently just wrong and needs to be fixed or changed. You have to look for the positive intention. What is behind that behavior that you don't like? And this might not just be something like anger or self-judgment. It might be drinking too much. It might be staying up too late. It might be sleeping too late, right? It might be getting angry at your children or something that shows up in work. There's always a positive intention. There's always a reason that people do the things they do. There's always a reason that you feel what you feel or think what you think. And just telling yourself you need to think differently is not the solution to making those old thoughts or those old habits of emotion or behavior go away. Resisting them and ignoring them and trying to change them is not highly effective. Finding the positive intention, finding the reason that they're there, that's what gives you the key to starting to change and shift those habits. There's an underlying need that you need to meet, but until you know what that is, you can't shift that behavior. To be honest, I really love the work of A Course in Miracles, and I have some other thoughts about Law of Attraction work, but I do really like a lot of the principles of Law of Attraction as well. There's some really good and powerful tools there. And I think there's a lot of coaching programs for men that focus on the becoming, on the who you're going to be, on the vision of the future. And that work is important and powerful. So if you're doing that, if you're doing any of that sort of work where you're visualizing what's next and bringing that actively into your life, keep doing it. It's good work. It's important work. I don't want you to stop it, but I do want to encourage you to add one more thing in, especially if you find that you're getting stuck or that you're having a hard time really stepping into and becoming that person or stepping into that life that you're trying to create. That piece I want you to add in is curiosity and a willingness to look at the parts of yourself that you don't like and the things within you that you might be afraid of. Looking at them is not going to grow them. It's not going to make them worse. It is not going to manifest lots of negative experiences into your life. Looking at them with curiosity and compassion is what's going to help you understand yourself on a deeper level so that you can actually see what it is that you need in order to let go and step into the future you that you want to become. So if this all just sounds confusing, or you don't know where to start, or you don't know how to bring this work into your process, go ahead and reach out to me. You can book a free consultation call with me. You can email me directly if my calendar is full. I would love to support you in doing this work, and if you would like that support, my coaching program, Better Beyond Divorce, is the place to get it. In that program, I will guide you through how to do this work for yourself, and I will also show up and give you weekly support on coaching calls and daily support in an online community to help make sure that you're able to apply these tools and start to see those changes and really move forward in the way that you want to.